Strap in and be prepared.
Maybe I'll learn from your failures.
That is what you could do.
Yeah.
Interesting guests.
Kelly Graves, Mike Parker, Josh Pate, George Reiser, Ryan Lee, Yogi Roth, who said that Justin and I are smart.
Sharp opinions.
I think Dan Lanning sitting in his office going, you know what, fine, give us the toughest road to win the national championship. That's what it should be.
Oregon State in their baseball program is still operating from a position of strength, even if they're independent. But here they are in the College World Series.
And some smiles.
It's iconic.
We're not keeping score, but maybe we're keeping score.
The fastest 60 minutes in sports is on the air. It's Danny Havel.
When I wake up every morning, I say to myself, what can I do to make Baby J's life better today?
Justin Grossweiler.
Have I ever told you, Danny, that growing up I really loved ducks?
Danny and Justin starts now on Fox Sports Eugene and Newport.
Hello, neighbors, and welcome high atop the Delta Triad, the Crystal Palace of the Bigfoot Beverages Studio, Fox Sports Eugene and Newport. This is the fastest 60 minutes in sports talk. We do more with an hour than most do with 3. Welcome to the Danny and Justin radio program. You can follow us on Twitter and Blue Sky, Danny and Justin. Just spell out the and then on all the platforms where you pod. If you missed the show live, first of all, shame on you. Secondly, you can go back and recreate and relive. Well, you can't recreate. You just have to relive what we do in this hour on all the pod platforms. Apple, Spotify, Amazon, iHeart, Odyssey, wherever you pod. Right there. I am Danny Havel. Right over there is my tag team partner, Justin Grossrunner. We call him Baby J. What a boy!
For some reason, I'm just thinking of Groundhog Day.
What?
And I don't know, you sing relive, and so it just makes me think if there was Groundhog Day and we had the Danny and Justin show
One of the best
on all
movies
these
ever.
pods, exactly, one of the best movies ever. But you'd be listening to the same Danny and Justin every day.
That would be, honestly, a nightmare.
It would be.
Unless we do a great...
It was a nightmare. That movie absolutely was a nightmare until he figured it out.
And then they ended up turning, I think Jeep turned, I don't know, shameless plug for Jeep or whatever. They turned it into a commercial during the Super Bowl, which was probably one of the best commercials that they did.
Was that this season?
No. It was a couple of years ago.
Okay, I kind of remember that.
Groundhog and Bill Murray. Really. And then they had Ned, they had some of the characters from Groundhog Day in the commercial. It was fantastic.
All-time great movie.
It's
on the Pantheon for sure.
Absolutely. I'm glad you at least watched that because again,
well, I'm a big Bill Murray guy. How could I not?
I've given you a lot of Kane over the months about the
movies
you haven't seen,
watched, but there
and still
absolutely are
haven't
some movies
seen.
I've watched. Absolutely.
Glad Groundhog Day's on the list. All right, kids. Well, thanks for tuning in. Lots to do today in our 1 hour. We will have, finally, I have been promoting and pumping this up. I can't tell you, I got to try and not be fanboy. Phil Steele and I go way, way back. He's not going to remember me, which is fine. He talks to a lot of people. I am the least important person in his life. But he writes what I call the College Football Bible. It's a preview of every single team that plays NCAA football. He also does it for the FCS, so FBS, FCS. The digital version is coming out shortly. You can get the hardcover version or the magazine, as it were, right now at Barnes & Noble, and you also go to philsteele.com. Phil's going to be on the program today. We're going to talk the college football playoff. We'll talk Oregon, Oregon State, his preview of the Big Ten SEC, kind of give you a history of how he built this magazine. It is literally over 300 pages of fantastic information. I mean, breaking it down by position.
Yeah.
He
ranks the best players by position.
He rates the best teams.
I think
by
everything is ranked.
It's fantastic.
The rankings are ranked.
You almost have to sit back and just slowly take it all in because if you try and read it cover to cover, your brain's going to explode.
Yeah, you have to go in it with goals in mind, right?
Going after certain information.
Yeah.
So we have it here in the studio. We'll be obviously referring to it as we go throughout the season this year. I know you were pretty excited when I got it and I showed it to you.
Because sometimes getting information about these teams, it's just really difficult. And to aggregate it all into one thing just makes it so nice.
So we'll have Phil Steele on the program. He's our big guest today. We'll have, by the way, and I know some people asked me about it last night, Josh Line had a conflict yesterday, the Willamette High School football coach. We're going to have him on the program tomorrow. So stay tuned for that. That's appointment listening tomorrow. We'll dive into the high school ranks for the first time this summer as we'll have the Willamette High School head football coach, Josh Line, former Duck, joining us and talk about his program, the state of the OSAA in terms of 6A football, and we'll cover all that tomorrow on the program. But first, we got Phil Steele today. So, did you watch the home run derby last night?
I did not watch it. I kind of caught up with it. I read about it, and I saw some highlights. I saw the big O'Neal Cruz 500 million foot home run. I saw that the Brent Rooker home run was a half-inch short, and so Cal Raleigh ended up advancing because they said the home run was a half an inch longer.
Yeah, that was weird. And they also had some controversy because I think I think it was Julio Campanero or whatever had a home run taken away by somebody in the outfield.
That's insane. I saw that. I was like, what are you doing? Why would you do that?
Well, it fortunately did not make so there wasn't like a one home run difference.
No, but that's terrible.
Well, just for your psyche.
Your home run robbed in the home run derby.
That is like the ultimate
crazy.
Slap. So
that should never be allowed.
Cal Raleigh from the Mariners wins the home run derby.
It's apropos, right? The home run leader at the break wins the home run derby.
But again, I'll tell you, it's going to be interesting to see what happens the first couple of weeks out of the gate for any of these home run
100%.
Competitors, especially the ones that made it to the final, had to go three rounds.
But he has an advantage of being a switch hitter, and he literally was going back and forth. So, I mean, he's a heck of a player. I mean, you talk about a catcher that won the Platinum Glove last year. So that's the best defender in the American League. And then this year, all of a sudden, he's on this Barry Bonds home run pace. I mean, this kind of came out of nowhere. I mean, he was a really good player.
But you don't expect a catcher to lead the league in home runs.
I mean, the next best catcher, I think, has 17 home runs or something like that, and he's at 35. I mean, this is really special stuff, and so it's kind of cool that he gets his home run derby moment. I'm not sure if he's going to win MVP because Aaron Judge is just on a different level.
It right now.
I mean, he's like hitting 350 with 33 home runs.
But listen,
it's ridiculous.
the media loves the darling.
And they love They love to
kind of poke at the net Yankees
when they have their moment, I think, sometimes. So I think there's a chance that sort of the narrative almost pushed, because like numbers-wise, I don't think there's an argument really for Cal Raleigh. I think if it's close, though, you could put...
What do you mean, numbers against him?
Like WAR. If you're looking at just like his like wins above replacement, which is like, you might not like it, but that's what they're going to look at. And if his wins above replacement is 2 or 3 above Cal Raleigh, which it's on pace right now, I think about over 1. So by the end of the season, if he's a couple more wins valuable, I don't know if you have an argument basically to have him be the MVP.
Here's the way I would flip that, though. Let's go by position as well.
I understand what you're saying, but that WAR takes that into account by position, and you are more valuable as a catcher than as a right fielder. But it basically what that's saying is that even because of that, even despite of that, I guess I should say, the way that Aaron Judge is hitting the ball, and he is a really good fielder as well, it's still more valuable than everything Cal Raleigh's doing.
Well, we're still only at the halfway point of the season. So let's see how the second half goes. Let's see how if the Mariners are still a part of the conversation for the postseason as well, that's going to lend a lot of credence to Cal Raleigh's case for an MVP.
Absolutely. And the Yankees have been scuffling.
So that's that as well plays into it. Now both teams make it into the postseason.
I just think
who
the
goes
fact
deeper?
That Cal Raleigh hasn't won one, and Aaron Judge has.
It's the sentimental favorite.
Exactly.
It's the story everybody wants to write. It's the story everybody wants to write. So we might end up in that spot, or unfortunately, something could happen in the second half of the season, unbeknownst to us, because that's the future. And unless we all have crystal balls, we can't predict the future.
We're not going to talk about the nickname.
No, I refuse.
No, we're not going to talk about it.
We already ran that into the ground yesterday, and my opinion has been very clearly identified in that whole thing. So good for Seattle, good for the Mariner organization to get all that pub, good for Cal Raleigh. What'd you think of the uniforms, by the way? And I don't. Are those going to be the same uniforms they wear tonight, or is that just the home run derby uniforms with the script? They kind of were stealing from the Atlanta script with the AL and the NL. It was like a lowercase a with an L, almost like in cursive. I don't know if I was digging the uniforms or not. You don't have to have an opinion on it.
Right? They never do.
So there was a point in time in the All-Star game where each player would wear
the actual jersey,
jersey of their team, 100%. And home or away. Mm-hmm. So if the NL was designated the home team, Cubs players would wear the white pinstripes, and same thing for the Yankees on the other side. I actually liked that. a lot.
I did too. And
because
I think
it's not like football. You have to
yeah.
identify who your player is and such. You know, you get all muddled.
And I think that sometimes with these all-star jerseys, they pick colors that just aren't bright and colorful. And this is like the all-star game. We should be having...
They were kind of muted.
Exactly. And I think that they kind of have these accents on them, and they have the colors in a certain way that says what team they're on or whatever.
Well, so the game's tonight. The phase of all-star voting started all the way back beginning of June. They had 2 phases of all-star voting, by the way. And then the commissioner's office announced the selections. There's player ballot choices as well. Shohei Ohtani, leading vote getter this year. Aaron Judge for the Yankees was the leading vote getter for the AL.
Yes,
Ohtani
for all we
the
said
Dodgers.
about the sentimental favorite for Cal Raleigh.
Well, but I mean, doesn't that make sense, though?
No, of course
with
it does.
the
He's
highest
the best,
population center and
100%.
fan base,
yes.
that
the
makes
Yankees
sense
are the most
to
popular
me.
team.
So the ATL gets the All-Star game. Everyone will have their eyes on it in the Peach State tonight. It will be on
good for Atlanta have something going for them this season because they're well, and it's interesting too because they're one of the few teams that I think actually might be a seller this year. Mm-hmm. And something that'll be interesting to watch is there's a lot of teams that are in contention and maybe not right in the 1 game out spot, but just close enough. 3.5, 4.5 games out where they could talk themselves into being not a seller, I guess you'd say. Maybe they're not going to buy, but I think the market this year might be a seller's market because I just think that there's going to be so many teams in contention that you're looking at maybe 5 or 6 teams that are not even close to in it, should reload. And honestly, Atlanta's getting close to that mark, and they're weird because they have all these great players. They've been a really consistent playoff team over the last 4 or 5 seasons. They have, obviously, the great Ronald Acuna Jr., who's playing great since he's coming back from his injury, but they're not winning, and at a certain point, you have to reload. Look what the Cubs did in 2016 when they traded away, 2021, I should say, when they traded away all their World Series guys. I mean, at a certain point, you just have to
Well, a lot of that was contracts as well. They weren't going to spend the money on it. So,
of course, all their contracts ended at the same time because they were geniuses.
Around the ASL, let's not get into that. Let's not get into the rabbit hole. The Danny and Justin radio program. Newport and Eugene, thanks for tuning in wherever and however. We'll stay on the ASG just one more little bit. So there's been a lot of controversy. Jacob Misarowski was named the Milwaukee Brewers rookie right-hander to the All-Star game. There was some criticism from players, especially on Philadelphia, that there were other pitchers that were more deserving. Here's where the eyeballs go. And Rob Manfred can say whatever he wants to say the right things about how it's, we want to put the young, exciting players out there, and he's having a great season. It doesn't. Honestly, a reserve pitcher that's 4 or 5 or 10 deep in the roster doesn't make that big of a deal to me. I think people are making a whole lot more about this than they should.
I guess. But also, though, I don't know. It just feels a little bit weird to me because
he's only pitched in 5 games, and that's
pitched 25 innings,
and that's where the push is, or the rub is. Now the MLB is saying there's a lot of fan excitement around this young guy, and so we want to highlight. Maybe there would have been a better position to put him in rather than this position this early.
And we saw last year. Was it last year that Skeens was the youngest, or was it 2 years ago? I think it was last year.
But nobody really raised a big hubbub about that because he had more innings pitched.
Yeah, he had more innings, and he was just so dominant in, I think it was 11 games.
Well, and this guy throws...
Let me get my point, though.
Okay.
I think that Jacob Misarowski, when you're talking about if the All-Star game was the best players, then I would say absolutely he is one of the best pitchers in baseball based on what we've seen, based on the analytics.
Okay, so what are you saying then?
So what I'm saying is that that's not what the All-Star game is. It's whoever's having the best season, because you could put his numbers up to like 50 pitchers maybe. That's exaggeration, but you could literally put his numbers and what he's done and his ERA and his innings pitched and his strikeouts per 9 innings and all that stuff, and you could put probably 15 pitchers in there above him.
Okay, well,
that's my problem with it.
But the sample size is that small. So are we talking about some pitchers that...
No, I'm talking about like starting pitchers.
So he's 4-1 with a 2.81 ERA, 33 strikeouts, only 12 hits.
I understand.
He's throwing over 100 miles an hour. Well, so again, the records I was seeing for the people that were, especially on Philadelphia, that were screaming and yelling about this, the pitchers they were talking about were 7-3.
But who cares about wins and losses at this point?
but that was part of the narrative of what they were arguing about.
Because it's about the fact that you have guys that have pitched. For instance, it was it Sanchez, I think, who had pitched like 115 innings, and had a 2.50 ERA.
all season
I think it was something
long,
like
that are-
that.
Sanchez 8-2 with a 2.50 ERA.
So
Ranger Suarez 7-3 with a 1.94 ERA.
I just think that there's guys out there that, even like you could look at like Shota Imanaga's numbers, and his numbers are closer to, or they're like better on paper than what he's done. So I understand why he's in there. He's going to play really well. I guarantee you he strikes out 3 guys.
So
it's not a talent issue. That's my thing. I have an issue with the fact that I think there's players that are deserving more than him for what he's done, and he's going to be a future All-Star.
Did you know Ranger Suarez played for the Phillies?
Yes, I did.
Okay, you're unique in the whole thing. No, this is going to be more of my point. Mm-hmm. You heard more about Mizorowski, and let's give
that's fair.
Let's give the kid a little bit of shade here too. This wasn't his choice. He's like in the middle of this mailstorm that everyone else has created. It's like I was just picked. I didn't lobby for this at all. They reached out to
apparently a lot of other pitchers first. I think they literally said 15 is the number that I had in my head.
Well,
so
obviously they didn't reach out to these 2 Philly pitchers.
Yeah, there was I can't remember who it was on the Phillies, but one of them, they literally, and by they I mean the team, gave him an all-star bonus despite not having made the team.
Because he turned it down.
Because his numbers were good enough to have made the team, and they were like, hey, you were an all-star.
So I think that those are all great points. See, but you have all these
somewhat
numbers.
Of an encyclopedia.
Yes. I'm not going to start calling you excited. Well, I mean, you have your lane and you like it.
Yeah. I love baseball.
I love baseball.
Baseball's been very, very good to me.
Phil Steele, the great Phil Steele, is next. Danny and Justin, Fox Sports Eugene, live from the Bigfoot Beverages studio. And Newport as well at 92.7 KNCU. Let's get back with Phil Steele next. We're going to talk college football right here. We are very happy on the Danny and Justin radio program live in Eugene and Newport from the Bigfoot Beverages studio. Let's head over to the Oregon Man Clinic's hotline at 541-343-5673 and welcome in the godfather of college football scribes. He is Phil Steele. You can follow him on Twitter, PhilSteele042. He puts out the college football preview. He's been doing it for over 30 years, and he joins us right now. Phil, first of all, welcome. You've been running quite a gauntlet with all the media appearances over the last couple of weeks.
Yeah, but this is actually my easy time of the year, guys. I get to talk football for 6 to 7 hours a day. There's no magazine deadline like we have for 7 months, and I'm not trying to break down 65 football games each and every week during the season. So this is my fun time of the year, the summertime.
Awesome. So let's talk about where did you come up with this, Phil? I mean, when you were sitting around, you're just like, now I'm going to put an encyclopedia together. And if people don't have the hard copy in front of them, by the way, you can get it at Barnes & Noble now, right across the street from us, nationwide. So where did you come up with this, Phil? Where did the inception start?
Yeah. I was writing a football newsletter, one that picked games, and what I would do is compile all this information myself. And the way I thought to compile it was I went to the newsstand, and back in 1993, there was probably 30 college football preview magazines on the newsstand, if you remember that. I'd buy them all, and I'd write down every piece of information from every single magazine. And guess what? At the end of the day, or at the end of the process, I probably wouldn't even have a starting lineup for some teams. I mean, they only mentioned certain players on certain teams. There just wasn't enough information for me. So what I did is I started getting the rosters myself, compiling history for each player, getting my sheets in line so that I had all the information I needed to know. And then one day somebody came into the office and said, hey, look at those pages you have. Why don't you turn that into a magazine? So we did. Back in 1995, it was 188 pages that year. It was on newsprint, black and white. We did have a color cover, but that was the only thing color in it. And we started competing with 30 other magazines. And lo and behold, now 31 years later, pretty much the dominant magazine in the market. And when I started this thing, Danny, I had no idea we'd grow to where it has today.
So football 365 days a year is Phil Steele joining us on the Danny and Justin radio program here on Fox Sports Eugene and Newport. So, Phil, when you started this 31 years ago, and it's grown and it's built, it's not just you. Now, you interview over 100 coaches a year, and you get an hour with each one of them. You get in depth. It's not just reading a press release or reading something that the school puts out that they want you to regurgitate, but you also have an entire staff. So talk about them as well, because you guys cover the country really well.
Yeah, and when you're dealing with 136 teams like we are, and by the way, we're also putting out an FCS magazine now, which has got 100-plus teams in the FCS, 2 full pages on that. You have to have a staff doing all the stats for you, compiling the information, checking the rosters, keeping track of all the latest information. It would be impossible to cover 230-some teams as one person. So the staff does a tremendous job. They get everything laid out for me. The coaches' calls are probably my favorite part of the job, but yeah, you couldn't get to where I am right now without the great staff.
Follow Phil Steele at PhilSteele042 on Twitter. We've got him here on the Danny and Justin radio program. So the state of college sports as a whole has changed dramatically in our time, and especially accelerated in the last 5 years. So does it change how you cover the teams? Because you break everything down by position, you break everything down by, the draft, all of it are all segments of what you put in this Bible. So has it changed how you approach, how you prepare?
It a little bit, I would say, as far as the approach goes, in the fact that now I'm sort of looking more at rosters that have continuity versus the ones that have 68 new players each and every year, and giving them a little more respect and saying, hey, the cohesiveness, the team. You look at Clemson winning the ACC last year. Ohio State used the transfer portal, but the bulk of the players were recruited by Ohio State. Army and Navy had great years last year. So there's something to be said for the team concept. But overall, it's drastically changed for the magazine. 5 years ago, once spring practice was over, I could interview the coaches and get the things done and send that magazine off to the press. But now you have to wait for the second transfer portal to close at the end of April and then try to cram in 130-some-odd coaches' calls all in the month of May. It makes it very hectic in the month of May trying to not only get in the coaches' calls, but then you have to adjust the pages, adjust the power ratings, adjust the predictions based on what you hear from the coaches.
Just to look at the big picture for this 2025 season a little bit, of course, with college football realignment and everything that's gone on, the 2 biggest conferences have turned into the Big Ten and the SEC. And I'm just curious in your thoughts of the depth of these conferences. Between them, if you could compare, which conference do you think has the depth pound for pound?
I would say the slightly deeper conference, I would go actually with the SEC this year. You take a look at my number 10 team in the SEC. You're looking at South Carolina, a team that almost made the playoff last year. They've got Lenora Sellers back at quarterback, and a lot of good talent throughout. You look at my number 10 team in the Big Ten, it's Minnesota, and Minnesota's good, and P.J. Fleck does a heck of a job. But if you go player for player on those 2 teams, I'd give the edge to South Carolina. So I just think overall, towards the bottom of the conference, I'd give the edge to the SEC. At the very top, I think, what we've seen the last 2 years, you've had, the national champ come out of the Big Ten and some of the top rankings in the playoff. And that may be the case again this year. In fact, my pick in the magazine for the national title comes out of the Big Ten.
Absolutely. We're not giving any of that away. You got to go buy it. And again, you can get it at Barnes & Noble right now nationwide, but you can also go to Phil's website and order it there and get the VIP package. You get all the FCS stuff as well, all the digital stuff. And Phil, I just got to say, the digital piece as well, what a great improvement for people who want to do it on the fly. I'm the old newspaper guy, so I like having that book in my hand, but a great kudos to your team for doing that.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And, Learfield had a lot to do with that. They got us a great digital thing. We experimented with the digital, had a lot of problems with it, but Learfield solved all those problems and got us some great digital magazines.
Phil, of course, we cover the Ducks and the Beavers here, so I'm just curious on your thoughts on what Dan Lanning has done this season and kind of reloading coming into this season with a lot of that talent that's turned into juniors, seniors, and able to leave for the draft. What do you think about them this season?
Yeah, generally when a team loses a quarterback like Dylan Gabriel, loses the bulk of their offensive and defensive lines, loses their top receivers, loses their top running back, I'm calling for a down year. But Dan Lanning is just doing a phenomenal job restocking this roster and stocking it to begin with. And, you look at the quarterback situation. I don't think Dante Moore is going to match Dylan Gabriel's stats from last year, but he is a top-notch QB. And while he didn't look great at times at UCLA, he's got a better supporting cast here at Oregon. You look at this offensive line. they lost all that from last year, but then you bring in a Matthew Bedford from Indiana, Emmanuel Pregnon from USC, Alex Harkey from Texas State, Isaiah World from Nevada. All of a sudden, you got 4 very talented guys coming in, and their center, who returns, probably the best offensive lineman. That looks like a pretty good unit. There's the receivers with Malik Benson and Evan Stewart, and then bringing in Corian Moore, the number 1 wide receiver out of college football. And we saw last year at Ohio State and Alabama that these top freshmen can contribute a wide receiver right away. And defensively, there's good star power in the defensive front 7. So I think Dan Lanning is doing a phenomenal job with the talent that he's compiling at Oregon.
Coming off a 13-0 season now, trying to repeat, and obviously that was perfection during the regular season, the stumble a little bit. And we'll talk about the playoff at the end of this conversation with you, Phil. But so trying to attain that height, and Penn State's on the rise. Ohio State reloaded. Michigan seems to have put some horses back in. And then Illinois, I think Brent Bielema's team could be one of the dark horses in the Big Ten. Talk about the first 5 or 6 teams that you see in the Big Ten and how they stack up against Oregon.
Yeah, and Penn State I think is going to be extremely tough. They're unlike Oregon, they didn't lose a lot to the draft. Didn't lose a lot anywhere. In fact, a lot of their players opted to return, much like Michigan did 2 years ago, much like Ohio State did last year. Veteran squads built. These guys all came in as freshmen. They're 4th or 5th year seniors now. They've got my number 1 set of running backs, number 1 offensive line. With Ohio State, you're looking at a team that's just got talent throughout, and we saw that in the playoff last year. Now, they're not as experienced as last year's group. Remember, last year, all those guys opted to return. They lost 15 NFL draft picks. Mm-hmm. But remember, Michigan last year lost all those draft picks and had a big drop-off. In fact, they were 6-5, staring a 6-6 season in the face as a 3-touchdown underdog at Ohio State till they pulled that upset and made the season get a lot better at the end. But Ohio State's got the talent, and when you look at their schedule this year, their toughest games are at home against Penn State. They do have to play Michigan on the road, but they could very well be favored in all 12 games, so they're a legitimate contender. We talked about Oregon. I love the talent that they have with Dan Lanning. They do have to play Penn State on the road and Iowa on the road, plus Washington, a very tough home team on the road, but they've got the talent to compete for it. Michigan will be better than last year. I don't know if they're right up there with the Ohio States, the Penn States, and the Oregons, but Michigan's close. I love their defense, and last year they were an extremely inexperienced team. This year they're much more experienced, and they've got Bryce Underwood at QB. And then you touched on it, Illinois. Brett Bielema's got 19 returning starters coming back. It's funny, I posted in February my preseason top 10 for the AP poll, which we've hit at least 9 out of 10 every year, and most years 10 out of 10. And the first text I get is from Brett Bielema saying, hey, you missed out on us. And he was giving me all the reasons why Illinois should be up there. And he's right. This is a veteran Illinois team. Now, I didn't think they were great last year, so getting 10-3 out of them last year was good, but this is a much stronger team that does play Ohio State at home Week 7. But you remember what? Last year, Week 7, they played the defending national champs that lost 15 draft picks at home, and they beat Michigan, so watch out for Illinois. And the final team I'll throw into that mix is Indiana. And, Cignetti lost a lot off last year's squad, but he did a great job replacing it again. And going over the roster with them, I actually feel they might have more talent on this year's team than they had last year. Tougher schedule, playing Iowa, Oregon, and Penn State on the road, but I think Indiana's a threat as well.
And Indiana, of course, last season they made their surprise run to the playoff. Do you think that there's going to be more teams like that in the future, or do you think that was sort of one of those teams that just the circumstances all kind of came together and they had that run, or do you think college football just changed and we're just going to start seeing teams kind of have that burst all of a sudden now?
I think we will see some teams surprise, but I can't imagine the level of Indiana because Indiana was down. I mean, it's not like they just missed the bowls or just missed the playoffs. This is a team that was 3-9, 4-8, 2-10 the previous 3 years, so they had really been struggling. And I do think it was a perfect scenario for them last year. You bring in your coach from James Madison. He brings over a lot of James Madison players who were hungry, wanted to prove something, and you had a great schedule. The schedule laid out perfectly for them last year, and they got things done. And, one thing I'll say about this is going through the rosters with the coaches, I have found that there's a much higher hit on the FCS players moving up because as long as they're experienced, they come in, they love the training table, they love the better facilities, they're hungry, they want to prove something, and they're great kids. Meanwhile, you get some of these P2 kids traveling down that haven't played, and sometimes you could get attitude. So a much higher percentage on those kids moving up.
He's got 12 television screens that he tries to watch all at once in his living room. It's Phil Steele joining us on the Danny and Justin radio program. You can go right now to philsteele.com and order up your college football Bible for 2025. You can also go to Barnes & Noble throughout the country and purchase the hardcover or the softcover edition, but the beautiful Bible there at all the Barnes & Noble. So let's go to the Pac-2. One last year for the Pac-2, Oregon State, Washington State. Let's talk about the Beavers. Trent Bray is trying to revitalize that program in Corvallis. Kind of a wonky schedule. They play Washington State twice, but the first 5 games, Cal, Fresno State, Texas Tech, and Oregon, kind of a murderer's row. And then you throw in Houston on the road on a Friday night, a short week after the Oregon game. So what is Trent Bray's outlook from your perspective?
Yeah, well, let's go back to last year for starters. Jonathan Smith left. A lot of guys hit the portal. All of a sudden, you got a team with one returning starter on defense. They're number 127 on my experience chart. And things started out well. 4-1, only lost to Oregon. Then 2 losses they could easily have won. Both Nevada and UNLV were games that they had chances of winning. They had a 24-14 lead over Nevada, 17-6 lead over UNLV. And after they lost those 2, I think Trent Bray coming into the season had said, hey, we're going for a playoff bid. We're going for a playoff bid. And maybe after those losses and the 4-3 record, that playoff bid was gone. And we saw the team go downhill a little bit in the second half of the year. Well, this year 2 for Trent Bray, I think is going to be much better. 6 starters back on offense, 6 on defense. It's going to be a different offense. Last year you had a quarterback in McCoy that ran the football in the option style. Now you got Malik Murphy, who's going to be a much better passer than they were last year. And I think this is just an overall a much more veteran team. So I think it's a big improvement for Oregon State this year. I'd give them a great shot at winning both games against Washington State. And if that's the case, they win the Pac-2 this year, and they've got something to build for with the Pac-12 returning finally next year.
Phil, I'll put it to you pretty simply. I think that everybody can understand and know that last year's playoff system, it just simply didn't work. All the first-round bye teams, they lost. I think it was a mess. What do you think the proper college football playoff format should be?
Yeah, it seems like we're going to 16 teams. So if we do go to 16 teams, I personally feel it should be the 5-11 mode. I know that, and I'm surprised that Brett Yomar came out and supported the 5-11 mode because, honestly, I think most years the Big 12 will get one bid. But it should be based on merit and how you play on the season. It shouldn't be slotted by conference play. I sure as heck don't want to see a 4 or 5 loss team get in because they're the 4th best team in a conference. So I think his 5-11 is the way we should go.
All right, Phil, we really appreciate it and all that you do for college sports and for us, the knuckleheads that have to talk about it year-round. And we've got this right by our side when we pull all the information up on all the teams that we get to cover during the year. So thanks for everything, and thanks for joining us today.
Hey, Danny, Justin, a lot of fun talking football with you guys today. Appreciate you having me on.
All right, we'll have you back, we hope. Thanks, Phil.
All right, thanks, guys.
There he goes, the great Phil Steele. Again, you can follow him on Twitter, Phil Steele 042. And go out and get the Phil Steele's College 25 Football Preview, the most accurate magazine over the last 30 years. I agree. Get it at Barnes & Noble or online at philsteele.com. When we come back, we'll close out the program. I have no idea where we're going to take it. We might talk about more mascot. We can talk about mascots. I don't want to talk about the big dump thing. I don't want to talk about that anymore. Danny Justin continues. Next, Fox Sports Eugene and Newport. That was fun with Phil. We had fun with Phil. You like the alliteration there?
I love a good alliteration.
I know you do. That's why I looked over at you with a smile on my face. That was great with Phil Steele. If you missed it, go back to the podcast, which will be up shortly after the program's over with, wherever you platform your pod. I don't know if that's a thing, but I know there's platforms for pods.
And not the shoes.
Very good. Yeah, I think we're on our game today. So once again, Phil Steele from the Bible. It is the college football preview. that's out right now on newsstands everywhere. There are still newsstands, by the way. And then you also go to Barnes & Noble, but you also can go to philsteele.com. You can order it there. The nice thing about getting a VIP package through Phil Steele, and I'm honking for him right now, even though he's not paying us a dime for it, is you can do the VIP version, which is what we have, and then you get the digital. And I know it's going to be up tomorrow, by the way.
That's okay.
Okay, the digital is going to be updated tomorrow, and you also get all the FCS stuff digitally. So, the Montana States, all those teams. Like, did you see today that Indiana backed out? We just gave Indiana some credit here, and they just backed out of their home with Virginia.
I did not see that.
And they're scheduling like Austin Peay and Samford, and there's a big finger wag going on at Indiana about, really? That's who you're going to schedule now for your non-conference, is all these patsies?
Yeah.
You've got momentum going.
Well, I think they figured out that worked for them last year.
Well, and they've got to pay Virginia $500,000 to get out of it, though. So I don't know if you're going to make that
Big Ten
up.
team, so
yeah, it's a tough enough gauntlet as it is. But with the field expanding to 16 teams, I think there's better opportunities for the Indianas of the world to get into the postseason if you're in a power conference.
Well, does this sort of lend toward the argument that I think a lot of the SEC teams have been making, which is, hey, if we're going to not have automatic qualifiers, then why are we scheduling big non-conference games? Why are we, the whole non-conference game argument of, does it matter?
I know that argument, but you know why it does matter? Is because it's better television. Yeah. Do you really want to watch a 70-7 blowout? No, Nobody does.
I think at some point it'd be really, really nice if instead of thinking about money, we could think about what was actually best for the game. Because there hasn't been that happening for about 5 or 6 years now. Every decision's come down to, but financially.
But here's the other: the NCAA has given control away, and they have not. There's no enforcement at all. It is a toothless dragon without fire, and he can't even spit ice. They're basically, it's like, why do you even
have a backbone?
Well, they certainly can if they want to put somebody on probation after investigating for 2.5 years, and then everybody else who committed those crimes or those offenses are long gone from the program, and so the carnage is left long after the offenders are gone. And I know Yogi loves Pete Carroll, but there was for a lot of years, a lot of angst on Pete Carroll, the way he left USC in shambles and ran off to the NFL because he knew it was coming. That whole coaching staff knew it was coming. They knew what they did. They did. Yeah, you don't have. You're not gonna comment on it because you want to stay friends with Yogi.
No, that's not the reason. You're more familiar with it than me.
Well, so it's those types of things that aggravate me. And if you're gonna have a legislative or an organizing or a overseeing entity like the NCAA, then put some teeth behind it. Put something behind it. I mean, again, the way they screwed up the whole NIL thing, the whole pay-to-play thing, it could have been much more straightforward and contained, and now we're back to the wild, wild west again.
You think that it should have been standardized?
I think it could have been a lot better than it was executed.
Wild West is absolutely the way I would describe it.
So to me, I kept it very simplistic, and maybe we had this discussion before, is the way they should have done this is that all of the money on these collectives go into one pot. Okay, it's not that guy out there is going to make $2.5 million. He's got the side deal with the RV dealer. This guy's got a deal with a jeweler and all this, and he's making all this extra cash and everything else. The third string guy who's on scholarship is putting in just as much effort and work as the star player. Yes, the star player is going to sell more jerseys. I get all of those things. Put everything in a pot, and the biggest caveat is you got to graduate. It goes into a trust. You can't touch the money. Besides living expenses.
So you think that they're going to have guys stay 4 years then?
Graduate? Yes. I mean, we got to get back to that anymore. I mean, I know that.
What about the guys that are the Jadeveon Clowney, who after 2 seasons they're coming, they're a sophomore, and the entire junior season that they're going to be the number 1 pick. And there's no reason to stay for a 4th year because
I know the arguments
are going to be number 1.
Well, and I know the arguments on the other side as well. That's one of them. The other one is they could get hurt, and then they could blow up the rest of their career.
Exactly.
Okay, I understand all of those arguments. I'm not saying it's the right way. I'm saying we could make it simplistic. That would be where I would start, is that you've got to get a degree. So let me put
not that I'm, not for that. I think that obviously getting a degree is a good thing. And, of course, many of the players that are going to be playing in college football, they're not going to be a pro. So they're going to end up with their degree, and that's how they're going to move forward.
So the thing is they can leave after 2 or 3 years of school. but then they don't get to touch that money until they come back and get their degree. And it may not necessarily end up being at that school. I don't care how it is.
And players have done it before, time and time again.
Finishing your education is an important thing.
I agree. But you could also make the argument that for certain players, it's really not that important because that's not how they're going to make money for their entire career, basically.
And then the secondary argument to that to me is they are getting a full. I would have killed, and so would you have gotten a full ride to go to school.
But this isn't turned into. That's where this is like the student argument of like, hey, are these guys coming here to be students, or are they coming here to be basically a minor league for professional athletes? And I think
that's what it's turned into.
But there's some guys that aren't. So that's where it's tricky. Where there's some guys that this is basically a step on the road, and there's other people where they really need that education, and you really don't know if they're going to go.
Is that the majority or the minority? And that's where it's hard to target. Which
majority is not. Most players that play in
they're not going to play at the next
sports
level.
Do not go pro.
Right.
But there's enough of them that are that I don't think you can. I think the minority is pretty important here.
Oh, I'm not. Again, I'm not discounting it. I'm just saying they put no guardrails in place for the most part, and now everyone's getting sued.
I don't disagree.
And so again, it's the
I feel like the rules change every year too with these things, like Diego Pavia.
Right. Well, the analogy that I said is the toothpaste is already out of the tube. You ever try to put toothpaste back into a tube?
I'm familiar with the analogy. Yes.
It does not work.
No.
So it's for a discussion for a much longer day with much smarter people than us.
Feels like we could talk about that literally all the time, every day.
We could, and we could figure out 4 different ways to solve it, and then we'd find 4 more ways after that to solve it.
And then find 6 more problems.
And then that's the other thing. It's a game of whack-a-mole. You're going to knock 2 of these things down, 4 more things are going to pop up. And I think it was George Reister when we were on with Goose last week that he said, I think it was Steve who actually brought up the point, is he said, we're going to have whatever the revision of all the rules are in the legislation and all that, when the court rulings and such, there's still going to be somebody that right now is working on how to get around it and how to figure out the loophole.
Right.
That's the way it is.
That's the game. I know.
That is the game. That's why I said it's whack-a-mole. It is 100% that. Right. So the Portland WNBA team finally unveiled their name to the surprise
That's what they should name them, by the way.
To the surprise of no one, the Portland Fire. They're bringing back the name from the early 2000s when Portland had a team for a couple of years in the fledgling WNBA. And so they're bringing back the name. There are people, there's a small pocket, I think, of people who are very upset about the Portland Fire being named the Portland Fire.
Yeah.
And columnist for the Oregonian, Bill Orms, probably, again, a very smart guy, had published a column back in June where he basically was going after the WNBA ownership and said, really, you're going to call them the Fire? After the devastation that happened a couple of years ago up in the Portland area, where buildings were burned, homes were lost, campsites. It was a devastating fire. It was a cataclysmic event, and I was literally a mile away from it. I had to evacuate. I remember it very well, what happened up there.
And I was in school when it was happening, and we did our documentaries and stuff like that on the effects of the fire, so I'm also very familiar.
All I'm going to say is just slow the roll. This is not the Portland WNBA ownership is not naming the Portland Fire a fire because of a devastating fire.
It kind of doesn't have anything to do with that. In the same way that, by the way, there's already a team named the Fire. They're in Chicago.
Yeah.
They're the MLS team there.
And guess what?
Was there a fire there at some point?
I think there was a cow involved.
The Great Chicago Fire?
Yeah, there was a cow involved.
So I feel like we've already done this. You know, we got to just remember history sometimes.
Now, and again, I think part of what you just said is something I could jump off of as well. Is they probably could have picked another name because there's already a team mascot or a team name in the same league that you're in. It would be like somebody naming the San Diego Packers. It would be like that. The same. It'd be like, I don't get it. You know, hundreds of thousands of names you could pick, and that's the one you came
Well, and that's the thing. I am not the biggest fan of the name The Fire, but I think when we criticize that, we should actually use some correct reasoning for it. Not this.
And yours part of it is there's already a team named The Fire in the league.
Well, not in the league. They're at MLS. So
okay, sorry.
So it's not in the same league. But I'm just saying we've already seen a team that historically may have some issues with the nickname Fire, and they seem to be okay with it. So I don't know why we have to litigate this all over again.
And it's something that's never going to go away.
No.
I mean, and Bill Orm said it would be like calling the WNBA team in New Orleans post-Katrina the Tide.
Which we talked about is...
Tulane's the Green Wave.
Tulane's the Green Wave. So, I mean, these names are supposed to be a little bit, like, intimidating and mascots of things that are scary. You know, that's just how they are. Any team named the Tornadoes or whatever. I mean, these are not supposed to be just, like... you don't call them the Poodles or something like that.
Well, the women's soccer professional team is the Thorns. I mean, thorn in your side, thorn in your foot. That hurts.
It's like the Roses.
Could it get infected?
I like that name. I mean, it makes sense.
So why not call them the Portland Roses instead of the Portland Thorns?
Because exactly, they're like a thorn in your side. It's like the competitiveness of the thing.
So mascot names are interesting to me.
Oh,
especially with new
love
franchises.
A good mascot name.
Well, so like the Utah hockey team is now the Mammoths.
Well, we could talk about how the Utah Jazz makes no sense at all. It's because they came from New Orleans and they were the New Orleans Jazz, and they moved and they just never switched the names. We could talk about the Lakers, who got their name from the Minneapolis Lakers, right? And so there's the
Dodgers.
Exactly.
The Brooklyn Dodgers are
right.
the LA Dodgers. And it was just easier to just not change the uniforms because it didn't ever say New York on it.
Right.
It just had the Dodgers in script.
Right.
So Branch Rickey didn't want to replace all the uniforms. That's part of what it was. That's the lore of that.
Always follow the money. That's the first thing. If you basically met an alien and you were trying to explain sports to them, the first thing that you should tell them is, okay, so the first rule is it's always about the money. It's never about anything else. It's never about the game. Always follow the money. And that's the first thing that sports is always about.
You know something else? If aliens flew down here and saw us, they would think that dogs ran the world. Because we're walking around behind them picking up their you-know-what. Mm. So who's the big kahuna in this relationship, right?
Right.
Okay. So tomorrow on the program, Josh Line, Willamette High School football coach, is going to join us. I know you've got some questions.
Sure. I think there were last year I would say that they were by far the most interesting team in this area, and I think that you could make the same argument once again, just what they've done there, the way that the transfers have sort of worked. I mean, they're just a team that they have so much potential, right? And there's just so much going on there. So I'm super excited to talk to him. He always seems like he's a great interview.
Yeah, so Josh Line tomorrow. Thursday, we'll be out at Laurelwood for our regular weekend Eve at the Wood, our third program out there, as we travel through this week on the Danny and Justin radio program in Newport and in Eugene. Let's do Dad Joke.
Oh, a joke!
I got fired from the bank today. A woman asked me to check her balance, so I pushed her.
Dad jokes!
Let's stay on the animal theme here. Did you see the dog's new outfit today?
I did not.
It was quite fetching. We really do need a rim shot. Can you find a rim shot and throw it in the hotkeys?
Like a brick? Oh, okay. Like a done.
Yeah, done. All right.
I can do that.
By the way, if you're wanting to beat the heat, because it is still hot outside, my recommendation, if you want to...
Which, by the way, is a name of a team in the NBA.
The Miami Heat?
Yeah.
Okay.
And nobody's offended by that.
Where I was going to is our good friends Travis and Katie have the back nine down there in the Sheldon Plaza right next to Safeway and on Coburg Road. And you want to get some nice, cool air conditioning and be able to swing the clubs, have some fun for very low investment. Go to the Back Nine website, book your tee time, give it a try, talk to them about some of the membership specials that they have. They have tournaments that are going on. You can play with your friends. You can play on your own. It's 24/7 access. You do not need to stand in line. They got 4 huge bays. Bring in your own music. It's a great time. It's the Back Nine on Coburg Road here in Eugene. All right, kids, back tomorrow with another fastest 60 minutes in sports talk. For Baby J, I'm Danny. God bless. Be well. Put a smile on your face, someone else's. They deserve it. So do you. Thanks for listening. Peace.